Shabbat Shalom, everyone. I trust and believe you all had a blessed week. And we thank the Father for His presence this week and for keeping us safe and providing to us what we needed. So, again, this is a short teaching that I'd like to call a Shabbat table manna that I will be doing from now on every Shabbat evening, the Friday evening. That is just simply for every household to discuss or to work through as the Father leads you. This week we'll be doing or talking about Proverbs 4:23, and it reads as follows: Watch over your heart with all diligence, for out of it are the sources of life. So we are being told to watch over our hearts. It's something that we are instructed to do, so it's an action. It's something that I need to be personally involved with. It's something that I can't leave for someone else to take care of. No, I've got to take care of my own heart. You see, it means to watch over something. When we are told to watch over, then it means to be watching over something, so it's to be focused in on it. To watch over something is to take control over it. Thirdly, to watch over something is to look after it and make decisions about it. And fourthly, to watch over something is to take care or to guard over it. So we are to keep guard over our hearts. So what in simple terms or layman terms does that mean? How about if we think of it as to keep guard over the entrance of our hearts? So the question is, what are we allowing in? And also, what are we allowing out or to exit or to leave our hearts? In other words, like the entrance into my house and your house in which we live, what are we allowing in and what are we allowing out of our homes? You see, this entrance is the doorway through which things get in and things go out. Like our homes, exactly like our hearts. So basically, we are to guard our hearts. We are to guard our hearts against what comes in and only allow in that which builds us up, that which is good for you and me. We only allow in that which is supposed to stay in our hearts, to fill us with the joy of the Father. Because if it doesn't give us joy, then it means it corrupts our hearts. So let's look at the word corruption. Corruption is a form of dishonesty or something illegal that is taking place. Or in a biblical terms, it is a sinful act which is undertaken by a person in his actions or his words in order to gain control over you and me, or how many times do they manipulate you and me? Or they gain access to our hearts to rule over us, to have power over us. You see, corruption can also come through what we watch, what we listen to, or even something that we do to ourselves. And this is the sins we commit. If we let in ungodly things, we become ungodly. If we let in godly things, if we want to call it that, we become more godly. In other words, if we follow the set apart instructions of the Father, if we follow His will, His Torah, then we will become more set apart or holy for Him. So we are to stand guard over our hearts, to keep guard over our hearts like a soldier who's on guard duty. You see, if you look at the soldier who's on guard duty, he would stand ready with his weapons. A soldier does not stand empty-handed. He's got a weapon in his hand, waiting and anticipating an attack from the enemy. You see, a soldier is battle trained. His mind is battle trained. That's what he's focusing on. That is what he's concentrating on. He needs to be ready, and that's the way you and I should guard our hearts. We should be battle trained, and we only get battle trained by prayer and studying our word. That's the only thing. You see, you and I need a general who teaches us what to do. And our general is the Ruach, the breath of the Father, the set-apart Spirit of the Holy Father. Are we battle trained? Is our hearts guarded? We guard our hearts because good and evil find their way into it. And you see, out of my heart, my door is my mouth and my actions and my emotions. So what comes out of our hearts if we don't guard and keep it? Messiah Yeshua said that what comes out of our hearts is what defiles us. We read in Mark 7 verse 20 to 23, and he said, what comes out of a man, that defiles a man. For from within, out of the heart of a man, proceed evil reasonings, adulteries, whorings, murders, thefts, greedy desires, wickedness, deceit, indecency, an evil eye, blasphemy, pride, foolishness. All these wicked matters come from within and defile a man. So as believers and followers of Messiah Yeshua, we are to read and meditate on His Word so that His Word can dwell in our hearts. You see, my brother and sister, our hearts is a dwelling place. It's either the place where the Ruach, the set-apart Spirit of the Father dwells, or listen to this, or it's a place where my evil thoughts and inclinations dwell. When our hearts is full of Yahuwah's word and His presence, then we are storing His image in our hearts, His character, His life in our hearts. You see, in protecting ourselves then against lies and false doctrines. Putting a guard in the doorway of our hearts is a way of protecting ourselves from deception, manipulation, heartbreak, and false lies and doctrines. You see, because all of that steal the joy in our lives, my brother and sister. And then the verse continues by saying, with all diligence. With all diligence means to carefully weigh our heart at all times to ensure it remains pure. To be vigilant and to allow the Father to search our hearts, to show us if there's any evil in it. You see, diligence is defined as, listen to this, as careful and persistent work or effort. Diligence is defined as careful and persistent work or effort. We read in 2 Peter 1 verse 5 to 7. 2 Peter 1 verse 5 to 7, it says, and for this reason do your utmost to add to your belief uprightness, to uprightness knowledge, to knowledge self-control, to self-control endurance, to endurance reverence, and to reverence brotherly affection, and to brotherly affection love. You see, my brother and sister, our actions comes from the things we think and believe. So what we do comes from what we think. From the things we do comes from the things we hear. The things we do comes from the things we feel. And that feeling, that's our emotions. You see, when we guard our hearts, then we guard what we think. Then we guard what we hear. We guard our feelings and our emotions. If we have the right beliefs in our hearts, our actions will be life-giving. And we will move in the right direction. When our hearts is right and pure, we can obey Abba Yahuwah's word and apply it in our lives. If our hearts are impure, we will do things with the wrong motives. When we guard our hearts with diligence, then it is possible to keep away from perverse talk. You see, when we guard our hearts with diligence, then it's possible to not to watch certain movies or to watch certain things on the TV. When we guard our hearts with diligence, then we do not want to be part of certain groups of certain people. We need to guard evil against evil. To keep our focus on walking on the right path, and allow Messiah Yeshua to direct our steps and keep our feet from doing evil, from thinking evil, from whispering evil. You see, to act or to do good or evil is an action led by choices, and that choices comes from our hearts. I'm going to say it again. To act or to do good or evil is an action led by choices, and that choices comes from our hearts. We read in Proverbs 4:24-27, turn away from you a crooked mouth, and put by a perverse lips far from you. Let your eyes look forward, and your eyelids look straight before you. Consider the path of your feet, and all your ways are established. Do not turn to the right or to the left. Turn your foot away from evil. Did you hear all the action that you and I are supposed to do? It says, turn away from crooked mouth, and put perverse lips far from you. Thirdly, let your eyes look forward, and your eyelids look straight before you. So don't look around you. Don't look at the Joneses. Don't look at the worldly stuff. It says consider the path of your feet, and all your ways are established. Do not turn to the right or to the left. You see, my brother and sister, we can't just sit on the lounge and think we're guarding and protecting. We need to be actively involved with our hearts. The fullness of your heart determines your actions and the course of your life. What we say over our life depends on what's in our hearts. What we say in the lives of our brothers and sisters depends on what is in our hearts. The power of life and death, and we know this, are in our tongues. You see, that which we speak out of the abundance of our hearts. We read Proverbs 18:21. The tongue has the power of life and death, and those who love it will eat its fruit. So do you have a guard over your heart? Or do you just speak? Do you just talk? Do you just say whatever is on the top of your mind? Do you just say whatever you feels in your heart? Or are you guarding your heart? So we are to be spiritually awake. We are to fully watch over our hearts. Constantly monitor or be aware of what's in our hearts, and eliminate what's not from Messiah. The word of Yahuwah will help us to know what belongs in our hearts and what doesn't. We are to carefully weigh our hearts at all times. You see, we need to ensure it remains pure. And this calls for vigilance and allowing Yahuwah to search our heart and show us if there's any evil in it. Only through prayer and reading. You see, only by intimacy, only by presence, and only with fellowshipping with the Father, then we can stand God and we can keep God. Because we will be able to keep a rein on our hearts. In other words, we will be able to control our emotions, our words, and our actions. By being actively watching like a soldier over the doorway to our hearts, we can be ready and awake to the onslaught and the sudden attacks and accusations of the enemy. Therefore, we wear our breastplate of righteousness. As we read Ephesians 6:14, stand then, having girded your waist with truth, and having put on the breastplate of righteousness. The second part of the verse is, for out of it are the sources of life. So your heart is your life. Listen, your heart is your life because your life is directed by what is in your heart. Your heart is your life because your life is directed by what is in your heart. You see, keeping your heart with diligence will mean you only allow into it what will help you to become more set apart for Messiah, more like Him, loving, confident, filled with His Ruach. The heart has the sources or the details of your life, and that is why it's hard to live a joyful life with a broken heart. Messiah Yeshua came to heal the brokenhearted so that we can live a full life. Even when bad things happen to us, we can guard our hearts by focusing on what Yahweh says about our hearts and about our lives. John 1:4-5 says, in Him was life, and the life was the light of men. And the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. Who is the source of life in your heart, my brother and sister? Is it Messiah? Is He the giver of life to you and me? 1 Corinthians 8:6 says, for us there is one Elohim, the Father, from whom all came and from whom we live, and one Master, Yeshua Messiah, through whom all came and through whom we live. You see, there's only one Creator. There's only one source of life. There's only one way of doing and following the Master. Messiah is the source through whom we live. Everything we are and everything we have is from Him. We read in James 1:17-18, every good gift and every perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, with whom there is no change, nor shadow of turning. Having purposed it, He brought us forth by the word of truth, for us to be a kind of first fruits of His creatures. So, my brother and sister, may we ask Abba Yahuwah to fill us with His breath, His source of life, to help us so that we can guard our hearts, so that we can be vigilant and awaken the Spirit to recognize the enemy, to see his attacks and his lies, so that you and I can live. Let's pray. Abba Yahuwah, Daddy, thank you for this week, Father. Thank you that you know the end from the beginning, Abba. You know what's in tomorrow. You know exactly what's coming, Abba. Thank you that we can end this week and we can go into your presence, Father. Thank you that you're the one teaching us, Abba. Therefore, I pray for everyone that hears this word today, Abba, that you will teach us through your word and through your Ruach, Abba, how to guard our hearts, Father, to be vigilant, Abba. I pray that you'll open up our spiritual eyes to see the attacks of the enemy, to see the accusations of the enemy, Father. Teach us to wear our breastplates so that we can live, because you are the source of life. In you are life, Abba. We pray all of this in your Son, our Messiah and Savior, Yahushua's mighty name. Please receive this blessing from the Father. Yaverechecha Yahuwah v'yishmerecha. Yair Yahuwah panav elecha v'chuneka. Yesa Yahuwah panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. Abba Yahuwah bless you and keep you. Abba Yahuwah makes His face shine upon you, and He'll be gracious to you. Yahuwah lifts up His countenance upon you and your family, and He gives you peace. Shalom, shalom.